maybe. And they fall out of sync and they move ahead, and maybe at those moments they move ahead, we call it stillness and we call it a discrete thought, and we have some reality, but whew, that's a hefty abstraction. Because I'd say at that moment when we're at that same speed, then we are essentially without time. That thought exists in that moment as a discrete object, and it can live forever if it's true, or it can fall out of sync. If it lives forever, then our pendulums are somehow extended, and we have some new, longer truth, but we just have to hope that the other parts don't throw us out of sync sometime. And I guess by that, I'd have to stay in a very stable mindset, but I believe in more than pendulums. I believe that our pendulums have recurrent truth. And in that sense, they fall in and out of sync as they are falling into and out of sync with other parts that are ever being tapped and added to. One of the interesting things is that I believe pendulums are not bimodal systems. No, they don't ever lose signal. They're always getting in sync. If they're tapped, then by them, it's not a change in a state. If they know they're tapped, then that's a signal. But pendulums aren't bimodal. Not normally. Energy in a pendulum. How does it change when the object conserves all of its energy as much as it can? It only goes down unless it's tapped. But by a pendulum, I don't think you could say that a pendulum could know that it was tapped. A pendulum wouldn't understand a signal like that, necessarily. And if it did, then I would say it's not acting exactly like a pendulum. You are imparting some forces to it that could turn it into a bimodal system. And this is like most things. Humans are not normally bimodal systems, but we have some aspects of our character, probably some of the most important, that are bimodal. So if you want to get off on it, okay, wait, this is about action. This is about minimizing action. No, I need to maximize action if I want to stay awake. I hate minimizing action because of this stupid balance. Somehow I end up helping more of my energy when I maximize my action a little bit. I add something to it that makes it more challenging of a course. I'm talking about my action. If my action is making this course too, is just an adjustment to movements between us in a bimodal system, Christ, you'll never get in here. Philip is embedding the Philip crystal within all of the crystalline structures that he has seen around Stephen Hawking. That's stupid. It's just some fractal. Honestly, it's almost like we put each other in a bimodal system by this notion of having to start with an interaction. But this is an old concept. So this is the notion that this is a resonance. It's resonant, I should say. So these are related to two different interactions between things that somehow establish their resonance. These are resonant, but they are not resonances, so to speak. And I use that to establish the difference between something that is a resonance, not necessarily involving the interaction of objects in such a way. So yeah, maybe a one-way interaction would be a good definition. So if I still have a one-way interaction, then I may still have a resonance. But if I have some interaction that changes both of them, then I would say they are I would say that some operation by me onto some other object is not an interaction as much as it is a transformation of that object that has no bearing on me. That object's knowledge of it, if it had of me, could not go back and affect me, or else it would be resonant and not a resonance. So I would say that any one-way interaction would be resonant, as well as resonances in other sets of non-interacting, non-reciprocal modifying interactions, places where we take a resonance and we establish something that is another resonance that may come from things that are resonant. You can go down that path, but I've really started to think about this, and this goes down to the work of Alan Watts. He's always going over the notion that it is the interaction between things that gives them any meaning. And so I would say that if your object somehow is devoid of meaning on its own, that it takes some values to have some effect in the world somehow, I don't like that. Yeah, I don't like that. But if the function doesn't get touched, then I would say the function is a resonance. And I would say that if the function is affected somehow and it is adjusted, then I would say it is resonant by some interaction. I am trying very hard to get around the fact that everything is based on an interaction. And I believe you would not call a world of something floating around on its own, being affected by the forces in it, an interaction. You would call it just an object within the universe. And this is the perspective that I prefer to take. This is the one of me dealing with objects in the universe like objects in the universe. It's a notion of getting around this whole, it has to be an interaction. And I believe in the universe and looking at it the physicist way, seeing the world in terms of what are the principles to be looked at. And if I live in the universe and that universe is having an interaction, I'm not affecting the universe, then I would say it is a one-way thing and it is a resonance in the universe and not resonant. It's a non-interaction. It's a reaction to the universe by an object. Something can be resonant within itself and it can be not resonant, but then it can be resonance, and it's so complicated you can't stop there. That's a beautiful place to go. I love this place much more than the one where I'm constantly squishing Discord. This moves forward. What is happening? Philip says he just had to go into being a foundations person. And he has to just make sure he doesn't go too far. And he says he needs to help save topology. Screw his anti-topology. He really feels like something is super special about topology and it just needs new foundations. But I do like to talk about objects' separateness. So if we talk about objects being pulled apart, what is the separateness between things? What is the center of a black hole when we are being ripped apart? What is the nature of that separation that we're making? What is the nature of the separateness and not the union? But not necessarily just the intersection. It is the separateness that I think is cool there for the anti-topology. And then the question would be, how do we talk about union of things when they come together? How do we talk about us being broken apart or being broken apart pieces, falling in a black hole from separateness into union? I'll tell you that I started with a complete hatred for topology. I thought that the coolest part was that topology could talk about continuity very easily. And I thought that is quite a result. Play-Doh is a rough language. I still try to realize truth is a little stranger. And the chirality is mixed in strangely. And so here they are, separated upon some two-dimensional surface. What would that surface look like if we pulled them apart? Most naturally, how would it grow? By differential equations, I imagine. But how would it grow in terms of its unlikely meeting, its unlikely production, given its meeting? So I pull them together slowly, and I get this. It's very uniform. It is ductile, it's ductility. It has a bit of a strangeness in the middle. There's a center point that has something in it, or maybe it's reflection and light, but it's very uniform. Is that all you got? Yes. And then we have this, which is like this non-Newtonian fluid glass thing that you can do it with water too. I think that if you could hit water, you could cleave it. In a sense, you could cavitate it. At which point we get a three-dimensional to a three-dimensional, but that's a separation that is an explosion on the inside. It is a separation like that. And then there's some threshold that happens. There's a point at which it becomes very discreet. It's creepy. I love it. But not quite. It's changed truth. Do all things do this though? Do all things stretch? Pull them slowly enough? Can I stretch a diamond? In a sense, I guess you could. Nice try. But stretching a diamond by gravity? Can you imagine the cleavage? Snap, 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 snap. Snap until graphite. Until carbon. Why does the diamond snap? What does the metal do? What does the metal do? It goes, fuck you. And it holds on to that though. The metal just, it wants to continue to go and hold on. But what are you? You are ionic compounds now. We're all being separated. We must... I just wonder if something is a non-Newtonian fluid and I have a Newtonian fluid. If I have two bulbs of water in space, can I not cleave them that quickly? Is there not a rate of change? There are bonds that form and they're very strong and they're deep in there, but I see crystals again. And I see chirality, and I just see somebody with a language that they really care about. Because it's given him silence. It's given him silence. Transformations. What is it? I am not you in the mirror. No matter how much I try, I am not you in the mirror. I can rotate myself if I am in there, but if you are in the mirror and you're what I see, then we are chiral. We are chiral. But we should be called achiral, he says. Because we don't have chirality. So you can't move me around. Yes, we're achiral. If we were chiral, then that reflection would do something. That transformation would do something. We're achiral. So it's very hard for us to do that and be real in the mirror. We can minimize ourselves, or we can find union that's something strange, something that we both have. In the mirror, it's hard. So the one thing